We'd also be joined by citizen lawyer Todazi as well as we discuss this from a legal perspective. Lawyer, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Let's get into the issues right away. We are looking at issues of law.
Okay.
There have been questions that have been raised concerning Mr. Speaker's actions and whether he even has a power to, if you like, do this. This ideally would have been done by the Privileges Committee. Yeah. At this point, though, unfortunately, we do not have a Privileged Committee. Yeah. Has Mr. Speaker overstepped his boundaries?
Good morning, Kwame, and good morning to your cherished listeners and your viewers. If you look at the law critically, I may think that the Speaker did not direct himself in a right manner. In that, we have the major principles in which we deal with anytime that there is a case before us. One of the major principles that you can ever come across in law is what we call the natural justice. The natural justice is a principle that we cannot forgo if we are dealing with law. It's a procedural
Class
matter.
91.3 FM.
The principles of natural law takes us back into the Bible. You know, we claim that God is omnipresent, omniscient, all the omni is given to God. It is presumed that God is everywhere. But then even in the Bible, when Adam and Eve took the apple, God still asked them, "What have you done?" And then they said that we've taken the apple. So you see, that's where natural justice is coming from. So we have two principles under natural justice. The first one is the odi outrant parting rule. The odi outrant parting rule simply means that hear from the other side. So at any given time, if something is to happen, you are supposed to hear from the other side. Even I think in this establishment or in this institution, if somebody is to do something wrong in this institution, you just don't take decisions against the person. What you do is that the person is referred to the disciplinary committee so that the authorities here will listen to the reasons why the person did whatever he or she did. Even if there is a judge on the road and somebody commits road offense, in as much as it is strict liability offense, the judge will not be on the road to judge the person. The person needs to come to court, go through the normal procedure, then there will be judgment. So that's what we mean by the odi outrant parting rule. Hear from the other side. Then the second principle is the nemo iudice incossasua, which means no man shall be a judge. Which means no man shall be a judge in his own case. So here we are looking at the one who is sitting on the case as the judge, whether he or she have interest in the matter before him. So even in looking at those interests, we look at one we call pecuniary interest. And then in law, when we say pecuniary interest, we are talking about financial interest. So imagine that I am a judge of the High Court, Commercial Division, and then there is a matter before me in relation to Kwejo Menu Bank. And then I am a director of that bank, or I'm a shareholder of that bank. I cannot sit on the matter because I have pecuniary interest in that bank. So there, I don't qualify. So there, I don't qualify. 2, we have relational interest. So imagine that my kid sister have stolen from somebody's shop, and I'm at the High Court Criminal Division sitting as a judge, and my kid sister appear before me. On the principle of natural justice, I cannot sit on that matter because I have relational interest in the matter.
Class 91.3
So if you look at all these, then there's a little bit problematic. If you even
problematic as in Mr. Speaker's decision to do this?
Yes. if you look at even the Audi Outram parting rule, the rules go on to say that it should be communicated to the person the time that the matter will be heard. So if the judge is going to sit at 9 or the disciplinary committee is sitting at 9, but you communicate to the person that you'll be sitting at 12, by the time the person gets in, you've already sat on the case, it will not be allowed. It goes against the principle of Audi Outram parting rule. Again, venue. So imagine that the case will be heard in Class FM. Meanwhile, so imagine that the case will be heard in Class FM. Meanwhile, the disciplinary committee people are sitting at Accra FM. There's a problem with venue. So that one too, the law will take it off. So in looking at critically what Mr. Speaker did, it breaches the principle of natural justice. And on that face, we cannot take it as a law. Ordinary people on the street will think that he has done well. But then we, the lawyers, because we look at procedure, because in as much as we have a substantive law, we also have what? Procedural law. So anybody who even goes to the law school will be taught the criminal procedure and then the civil procedure. And if you breach any procedure, note, your case will be thrown out. Let me give you a typical example in respect to this. I don't know whether you've heard of this case before. Awuni versus Wayek. In the case of Awuni versus Wayek, Wayek arrogated into themselves and then cancel examination that have been written by some students without calling the students and listening to why what happened on their paper is. And then Wayek just went on, cancelled their papers. Awuni took the matter to court, and the court said that no, Wayek have breached the principle of natural justice, and specifically the nemo iudes in causa sua. Wayek arrogated onto themselves as judges and decided the case. And again, they breached the principle of Audi Outram parting rule. They did not listen to Awuni and his people. Why they did whatever they did.
In line with what you have said. Yes. I mean, if we are looking at it from the point where at this point, there is no privileges committee in Parliament. Yeah. At this point, there is no committee. Yeah. So if there is no privileges committee in Parliament, Mr. Speaker supposedly is in a position to. I'm sure if there was a committee like that in Parliament at this point, that's a privileges committee, the case would have been referred to them.
1.3
If there is no committee like that, is Mr. Speaker not looking at the sanctity of the space in which he controls and says, look, hang on a minute, your actions have been inappropriate. I am suspending you. In line with that, I'm forming a committee to look into this issue. Is that wrong?
It is wrong. In law do not know this. Okay?
Mr. Speaker is a lawyer. He should know this.
No, yes. And that's why all the lawyers, you remember you just play a tape
of Inisa Futini.
Yes.
He's also a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. And an NDC person. But he had his position. You see, with law, you can't step side law and be free. Because law is law. Okay? Law is law. And then laws are fundamental rules, regulations that have been set out to regulate the conduct of people. So immediately you allow Mr. Speaker to do this, it will become problematic in that somebody else will do the same thing without giving recourse to the law. So with the law, you can't push the law aside. What you are talking about comes in. It's also under the natural justice called the principle of necessity. The principle of necessity. But then here, Parliament is in session. It is instructive that various committees in Parliament should be formed.
They are not formed at this point.
You see, that is the problem we have. When leaders do not do what they are supposed to do. Every parliament is supposed to have various committees, such as the appointment committee, the education committee.
There are so many.
There are many. Why is it that the appointment committee have been formed and then the other committees have not been formed? Because they think that vetting the ministers is more important than any other. That is the problem we have in Ghana. We don't look at things in holistic manner. It doesn't take much time to form these committees. How many days they use in forming the appointment committee? They could have looked at the other committees too. Because privileges committee is a serious committee on its own. See, let me even give you a typical example. You remember the case in respect to Vakavomao. It's the same thing. The appointment committee do not have power to sit on that matter because they claim that the gentleman have set
to that as well as we discuss this from a legal perspective. Lawyer, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Let's get into the issues right away. We are looking at issues of law.
Okay.
There have been questions that have been raised concerning Mr. Speaker's actions and whether he even has a power to, if you like, do this. This ideally would have been done by the Privileges Committee. Yeah. At this point, though, unfortunately, we do not have a Privileges Committee. Yeah. Has Mr. Speaker overstepped his boundaries?
Good morning, Kwame, and good morning to your cherished listeners and your viewers. If you look at the law critically, I may think that the Speaker did not direct himself in a right manner. In that, we have the major principles in which we deal with anytime that there is a case before us. One of the major principles that you can ever come across in law is what we call the natural justice. The natural justice is a principle that we cannot forgo if we are dealing with law. It's a procedural
Class
matter.
91.3 FM.
The principles of natural law, because privileges committee is a serious committee on its own. See, let me even give you a typical example. You remember the case in respect to Vakavomao. It's the same thing. The appointment committee do not have power to sit on that matter because they claim that the gentleman have said something about them. And then they were the same people going to sit on that matter. It breaches the principle of Nemo Judes in Kosaswa. No man shall be a judge in his own cause. So in as much as Mr. Speaker is a lawyer, in as much as he wanted to do the right thing, it is against the law. And if you breaches this, it is a fundamental principle in law. Wherever you go, you will fall. Quite recently, you remember what happened to you remember the MPP went to court in respect to the election. That the court should give them power so that the EC can recollect certain constituencies. You remember that issue?
Yes, I do.
And then the NDC went to the Supreme Court. It was the same principle. It was the same principle because NDC was in court, but the court said we are not going to hear you because you are not a party to the case. But the NDC went to the Supreme Court saying that in as much as we are not a party to the case, we will be affected by the reconciliation. And for that matter, you should listen to us. And that's why that decision by the High Court was set aside. If you remember, just last 4 weeks. So the principle of natural justice can never be pushed aside at any given time. You are supposed to look at it. That is the basic law, the basic procedural law you can ever have.
What are the options available to, at least one is from the NDC side, the Honorable Daffy Amepo, and 3 on the part of the NPP have been suspended. What are the options available to the NPP at this point? Because clearly they have raised concerns about this development. They're unhappy with the decision. And they say they are not going to just let it lie fallow.
I heard the minority leader that he was going to see the majority leader, that they will go to speaker so that they have discussions about it. I know they can just look at this. Even currently.
The 3 of them are lawyers. The majority leader is a lawyer as
Yes.
well. Mr. Speaker is a lawyer.
Yes. Including the first deputy speaker, who is even saying that speaker's decision is wrong. But then I have problem with the first deputy speaker from the angle he is coming. He is saying that, and that's what Chairman Sabosutu have been saying, that the power to take such decision should not come from the speaker, but it should come from the committee chair, which is the first deputy. No. Chairman Sabosutu is wrong.
Why?
All committees in parliament are committees of the speaker. Do you get it? All committees in parliament are committees of the speaker. Just that the speaker cannot be on all the committees. That's why he appoints people to chair. So in as much as the first deputy speaker is sitting as the chair, it's the speaker who is sitting at the chair. It's just like the courts that we have in Ghana. From the High Court to the Supreme Court, all the courts are for the Chief Justice. Just like he can be in all the courts. So various judges have been appointed to occupy those seats. It's the same. It's the same principle.
Class 91.3.
All the committees in parliament are the speaker's committee. And for that matter, the speaker is the chair in as much as he doesn't sit with them. So I have problem. But the principle that he has breached is the natural justice rule. And for that matter, that one we can't forgive him. Overcome, we can never forgive him. So all that I will say is that Afenyo Makin should see the majority leader, they go to the speaker and then they see how best they can deal with it.
But in this case, a decision has been made on this. Mr. Speaker has chosen to suspend. In fact,
and for that matter, that one we can't forgive him. Overcome, we can never forgive him. So all that I will say is that Afenyo Makin should see the majority leader, they go to the speaker and then they see how best they can deal with it.
but in this case, a decision has been made on this. Mr. Speaker has chosen to suspend. In fact, I'm sure the days have already started running now. They've been out of parliament for the last few days.
There's no serious parliamentary business going on. There's no serious parliamentary business going on. And this thing can be taken care of. So what I think they should do is that the privileges committee should be quickly formed so that matters regarding this will be critically looked at and be looked at in a better way, because what the MPs did is wrong. They call themselves honorables and they are supposed to act as such or behave as such.
If Parliament is supposed to be a master of its own rules,
Yeah.
if Parliament is supposed to be a master of its own rules, on the back of what we did see on TV, I wasn't there, but I saw it on TV. On the back of what I saw there, is that not enough for Mr. Speaker to say, yes, in as much as the appointment committee or the privileges committee or whatever committee has not been formed at this point, because of your actions, which were so glaring to the public, I do not think this is right, and this has defamed us, and I am taking action.
Obagame, this, if you immediately start talking this way, you take me to the Constitution. Have you averted your mind to Article 17 of the Constitution? Article 17 of the Constitution talks about equality before the law. All persons shall be equal before the law, regardless of your social stature, regardless of your gender, regardless of whatever. So immediately you say that they are the masters of their own rules, meaning they can do anything at all.
Can I
No.
read Article
Yes,
17
read
on the back
Article
of what you have
17,
raised?
yes.
All persons shall be equal before the law.
Yes.
2, a person shall not be discriminated against on grounds of gender, race, color, ethnic origin, religion, creed, or social or economic status.
Social or economic status, that's where they fall. You can't discriminate against us. That for you, because you are in parliament, you have a different social stature, and for that matter, you are supposed to have different rules for yourself. No, it is not allowed. You can look at Article 296, discretionary powers, against Article 23. They are supposed to be acted reasonably, fairly, and just.
Was this not reasonable?
No, it wasn't reasonable. If you breach procedural rules, then your actions are not reasonable. So, Article 296 talks about discretionary powers given to people in authority. Okay? And those people in authority, in taking
Class
those decisions,
91.3 FM.
okay, they are supposed to look at Article 23. They are supposed to be fair. Those decisions are supposed to be reasonable. It's supposed to be just. So we cannot look at it from this angle. What the speaker did is wrong. And I know him. If he sit down, reflect on issues, take his books and read, he will appreciate that what he did is wrong. And what the minority is saying is the proper way to go.
So the minority leader, that's the Honorable Alexander Penyo-Marking, goes to see, I'm just hypothesizing, that he goes to see the majority leader.
Yeah.
They go to see Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker says, I am standing my ground. What next?
The next thing is that they go to court. And when they go to court, by the time the court was set, it will be moot. That's the problem. The principle of mootness is when you are going after somebody in law, but by the time that what you are going for is given, it's useless. So if you go to court and then the court says that they will sit on the case or on the matter
in
next
3 weeks' time,
and in 3 weeks' time, this is
the 2 weeks would have been over.
Yes. So you see, that is the problem. So sometimes,
but they can get a hearing as quickly as possible.
That's very difficult. That's very difficult. The courts are impregnated with a lot of work. The courts is impregnated with a lot of work, and this becomes a little bit difficult. But I know Speaker, he's a listening person, and I know even by now he has reflected on his actions, and then he will go accordingly.
Mr. Speaker would not have taken a decision like this lightly.
It was because of how the thing happened. So, borrowing your words, he wanted to bring the sanctity of that honorable chamber, and that's why he took that decision. Because what they did was wrong. What they did was too bad to the public. What they did is too bad to the world. And I've always been telling you, we are supposed to project ourselves in a nice manner to the entire world. If not that, people will not come and invest their money into the country. So I think the Speaker did this because of what he saw and because of what happened.
I want us to listen to the thoughts of former majority leader, former Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, the Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu, one of the longest serving members of Ghana's parliament, on his thoughts on Mr. Speaker's actions. And then we'll continue with the conversation.
I think that the incident which happened last Thursday and indeed in the morning of yesterday, Friday, certainly brings the name of Parliament into disrepute. It is grave and requires